Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a recent high school grad from Seattle, and I'm heading to Stanford this fall. But I was also accepted to Harvard. Both schools are extremely selective, like under 4% acceptance rates. But the good news is, there are patterns for what worked well in both my applications. In this video, I'll walk you through my stats, extracurriculars, passion project, how I approached my essays, and my application strategy. Plus, I'll give you some tips on how you can make your application stand out too. Let's get into it! Okay, quick stats check, because yes, they matter, but they're not everything. I had a 4.0 unweighted GPA, took 12 AP classes throughout high school, and scored a 1560 on my SAT. Here are my scores for my AP tests, and the score breakdown for my SAT. Both schools definitely want to see academic rigor, but honestly, these numbers didn't get me in, because there are thousands of students with 4.0 GPAs and perfect SAT scores that get rejected every year. So if you're watching this thinking, my stats aren't perfect, don't panic. What really matters is what you do outside the classroom and how you tell your story. Selective schools generally like students who have both breadth and depth. I had well-rounded activities, so like varsity sports, orchestra, community service, student government, but I also had a very clear spike. Okay, so here are some of my extracurriculars. I was an intern at a Seattle nonprofit. I launched a nonprofit art shop that donated proceeds. Lots of leadership as well, including student government. I was co-president of the community service club, leadership on spirit committee, led some groups with an outdoor leadership group. Lots of sports as well, varsity track and varsity and club soccer, music, so Seattle Youth Symphony Orchestra, All Northwest Orchestra. I taught violin, and community service. So I was a food bank volunteer and also coordinated a volunteering opportunity for neighborhood youth. Finally, I was a volunteer research assistant at UW Medicine. These are some of the activities I thought were notable, so I put them in the Common App activity section, or if they didn't fit, in the additional comments section. But my spike, the thing that honestly tied my application together, was my passion project around female athlete health. I created a podcast on REDS, or Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport, organized district-wide workshops for coaches, organized events, collaborated with nonprofits, met with state legislators, and also proposed policy changes for better athlete health and protection. This showed that, I wasn't just doing and participating in activities, I was actively seeking to create impact through leadership, community engagement, and my own initiatives. That's important for college admissions officers to see. Specifically, Harvard loved that I was combining health, policy, and advocacy. Stanford loved that I was entrepreneurial and innovative in the way that I approached my initiative. And if you are planning on applying to Stanford, Stanford is like the home of startups, so maybe consider something entrepreneurial or innovative. They'll love that. So yes, aim to be well-rounded, but also try to have a focus. It's generally the focus that will make you a memorable applicant to the admissions officers. Now, essays. This is where you can really stand out. This is where I think I really tied everything in my application together to create this sort of compelling story that showed the admissions officers who I was, what I did, and what I plan to do in the future. For my Common App essay, I wrote about my experience with an eating disorder and how my inquisitive nature led me to research the science behind energy restriction and subsequently become fascinated with REDS, or Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport, and the female athlete triad. How that then blossomed into a passion project where I wrote a research paper, launched a podcast, organized events, conducted legislative advocacy, and how I plan to continue connecting science, leadership, and advocacy to build on my initiative at X College. I think this essay worked well because it covered the why, so my experience with an eating disorder, which is obviously something very personal and significant to my life. And then it discussed what I did because of the why, so all the things I did for my initiative, and then it talked about how I would continue to pursue a specific vision at the college I was applying to. Colleges love to see that an applicant has made an impact in their community for something they're passionate about, and that they will continue to pursue that interest at their college. So the Common App essay went to both schools, but for the supplements, I made sure not to be repetitive. For Stanford, I leaned into my love for the outdoors, community, intellectual curiosity, and pulled out the more funny, quirky, and unique parts of myself. It definitely felt more personal and vibey. I'd asked myself, how can I be different? What makes me unique? So I can share more of my Stanford essays and what I actually wrote in my supplemental questions in a later video. For Harvard, I leaned into leadership, initiative, musical creativity, and my curiosity about health policy and how I wanted to combine science with advocacy. It definitely felt a bit more intellectual. For every supplemental essay for Harvard, I made sure to relate my experience back to something deeper about myself or the world, and how I would contribute to Harvard's student body. And now that's a tip you can use for any college. It's not just Harvard. Now here's a piece of advice I have for you. Start a Google Doc and just brain dump adjectives, values, quirks, random stories, and little moments that shaped you. Then ask yourself, what's unique about me that someone else couldn't copy? How can I show different angles of myself in each essay? Your essays shouldn't repeat what's on your activities list. They should bring out the why in what you do. By the end, your reader should honestly know you. And that means they know your personality, your little quirks, and your values. You also should try not to have repetition between your essays. If you wrote about soccer in one essay, then try not to write about soccer again in another essay. It's best to touch as many bases as possible so that your admissions officers can see you as a well-rounded person. For example, I didn't mention my passion project in my Stanford supplemental essays because I talked about it in my Common App essay. For rec letters, I picked teachers who I really connected with. Instead of choosing teachers who I thought taught the most challenging courses like AP Chem or AP Calc, I chose teachers who I'd had meaningful conversations with or connected with over shared hobbies or interests. Admissions officers can always tell if a letter is authentic or generic and written with lots of inspiration from AI, which you don't want. I had the option to do alumni interviews for both Stanford and Harvard, and I chose to do in person for both. That's just because I personally find that I'm able to connect with people better in person, but remote totally works too if that's what you're more comfortable with. These interviews felt more like a conversation, and I had the opportunity to ask questions. If you want to look prepared, come prepared with talking points and practice answering commonly asked questions with your family or friends. I talked about my passion project and my various interests, but I also showed that I was a fun and curious person. Interviews are honestly more about fit and personality, not about listing off your resume. Okay, now let's get into tips. If you're applying to schools like Harvard or Stanford, here's what I'd focus on. Pursue what lights you up. College admissions officers can tell when an applicant is really passionate about something, so go for it. Go for whatever makes you light up. Go for what makes you a passionate person. Have a clear spike. Aim to be really good at one thing, or create your own passion project like what I did. Avoid repetition in essays. Use each essay to reveal a new aspect about yourself. Brainstorm deeply. Dump your values, quirks, and stories into a Google Doc or a Word doc. You'll start to see themes. Finally, show impact. It's not just what you did, but why it mattered. And remember, college admissions aren't the ultimate measure of your worth. You're so much more than an application in a handful of essays. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you're applying this year, I'm rooting for you. Drop any questions into the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. I'm also planning on sharing my Stanford essay breakdown and move-in vlog, so subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see you in the next one.